Hi, I'm Sylvia Gordon. We're the Sisters of Selling. This is my sister, Rebecca Gordon. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the new UHICA Medicare Supplement, NAIC credit scores, COVID SEP, and the Part B reduction or supposed reduction.
Tell you what, this stuff just keeps getting better. Just when you think it's boring out there in insurance land, we're constantly bombarded with changes and updates, and that's what we're bringing to you today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Part B reduction. So all of you know, this year we took a massive Part B increase, an unprecedented amount of 14.5%, thanks to our buddies at Health and Human Services. A lot of people were upset. It's a shocking amount. And then we found out that the main reason,
not the main reason, but an additional reason besides COVID and inflation,
was our good friend, this Alzheimer drug that we've spoken about many times. And I'll try to pronounce it. It's one of my favorite words. I'll do him. That sound right? Pretty good. So again, as we've talked about, this medication, its launch was the first one in, 20, 30 years for Alzheimer's, but then it started to come out that we're not really even sure if it works. And oh, by the way, it's super expensive. So here you have this massive increase for Part B, and people are like, hey, there's a huge percentage of the population who will never touch this. So what are they doing to try to combat all of the negativity?
So it also is mired in a little bit of stink about how this drug got approved when there was no data to prove its efficacy. So there's something that went on there with the drug maker Biogen. Biogen came back and they said, we'll drop the price in half from $56,000 to $28,000. So that happened. And then Medicare came back and said, hey, we're not going to allow this drug to be open to anybody on Medicare. Now it's only available for people that are approved for a trial basis. Right. So therefore, the risk is not for all 50 million people on Medicare Part B. And then if it's not the risk to Part B, then Part B's price that was padded to cover this should come down. Health and Human Services Secretary Manuel Becerra, I like to say that, our first Latino HHS secretary, he said in January, hey, all of this stuff, therefore, let's look at reducing Medicare Part B. And they said they would announce it April 11th. We've been very heavy on social media telling people, hey, look for some possible good news. On April 11th, they didn't say a word.
And they haven't said a word since.
All week long.
Crickets.
All week long. So we don't know, are they ever going to say something? We don't know what's going on. But again, this is good information for you to have for your clients. A lot of them are tuned in and are kind of say what's happening. A lot of them have the misconception, or I would say unrealistic expectations that it's going to be a big drop.
Right.
Like it's going to save them a lot of money because there's so much inflation everywhere they turn right now that they're really hopeful that this could
break someplace.
That this could help them. And I'm thinking it's maybe going to be $4 or $5, which is not really going to change anybody's monthly budget.
Right.
But we don't know. We don't know. I assume it's coming any day now.
So this information will be in our newsletter that we generate and send out to you. And
this goes in the client newsletter. For a lot of people have signed up for our client newsletters, that will go out today.
This will go. And also you can use this information to put in your own social media posts to get that information out to your own clients.
Or if you do your own newsletter. Want to talk about credit scores. China gets a lot of crap about their credit scores. Like if you're a gambler, if you have DUI, if you have late library books, all that shows that you're not a trustworthy, organized person. And so you don't get preferential plane tickets, or you might not be able to use the train at all. And so everybody loves to hate on China for that. But we have our own corollary that we've had for years, which is your credit score.
So yeah, your credit score has always had a place in determining P&C rates.
Right. How much you pay for homeowners.
Life insurance rates.
Renters. Right.
But some states are now saying, wait a minute, we're not going to do this anymore. We don't think it's fair.
So, they don't really think, I would say fair. I try never to use fair. They don't think it has a basis in reality, that it has a necessary correlation in risk, right?
And for me, I would love to see the data on that, because I would probably associate some type of a risk. And I don't know.
So I like to talk about one of our agents that we really liked a lot, Sherry.
We don't like her anymore.
She's not in the business anymore. We still like her. She got out of the business.
God rest her soul.
But she was a great agent, had sold good business, but her husband had his own business and he died. And his business partner was running it. She was now part owner just with this business partner. He embezzled everything. He didn't pay the bills. He crushed her.
He crushed her score.
He crushed her score. She had to sue him.
That's not
and
fair.
And she lost her appointments. And yeah.
So that part is not fair.
It destroyed her.
Yeah, that is not right.
And I mean, I can tell you a whole bunch of these stories when it's typically involves a divorce or a death.
Yeah, that stinks.
And my divorce, my ex that used to pay the mortgage, he just stopped paying it.
Right.
Just to put it to me. I mean, I'm not saying this actually happened, but I'm saying this has happened to other people.
It did not happen to her.
But you know what I'm saying?
That situation, absolutely.
So let's say the NAIC is 50 different states. National Association of Insurance Commissioners. We don't have a department of insurance. A lot of people get confused about that. They're like, why doesn't the government do anything?
Right.
The government, when it comes to insurance, is 50 different states, and they can go 50 different directions.
So what we're seeing is that California, Hawaii, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Michigan have completely banned the use of personal credit scores when determining the rates for at least some insurance lines. So that's happening
in the really liberal states. That's
very liberal states.
Probably expected.
Right.
So let's talk about Oregon, also extremely liberal. Utah is kind of an outlier because they have a Republican governor who's very liberal. What's going on with that, Utah? Anyway, Oregon and Utah prohibit insurance companies from canceling a policy or non-renewing a policy based on credit scores. So generally, we're talking about life, homeowners, renters, this other stuff, non-Medicare, but a lot of you also sell life and sell PNC. So that's why we're putting this out there, that it is changing. Utah says you can only use a credit score to give a discount. So it can only be an upside. If you have a good credit score, they can give you a premium discount.
Good. Well, when we look at Washington, their commissioner said for the next 3 years, they're not touching it for automobile, homeowners, and renters insurance. And really, what we're hearing from a lot of people is that kind of what you were saying, it's really not a reliable source. I mean, that's kind of my opinion. It seems like a credit score can fluctuate quite a bit. So it'd be kind of hard to really see any validity in
all the rest of these states,
or accuracy.
All the rest of us selling PNC and life insurance in the heartland, they are using it. And we all know that they use credit scores for contracting with Medicare Advantage, and that United Healthcare does. A lot of companies just to get contracted. Like if you can get in, you can stay in. Once you get in, you can get divorced and tank your life. But United Healthcare, you got to get in and stay clean because they check your credit score every year. They do a re-background.
That's right.
So if you're going through a divorce, a bankruptcy, if you fell behind on your taxes, and all these things happen, you can lose your appointment with United Healthcare. And unfortunately, we hear a couple of those every year.
That would hurt.
And everybody wants to know, how do I get back? So I didn't talk to you about this, but let me just interject. It's the same with DUI. Unfortunately, we always get a couple people. When you deal with thousands of agents, you're going to have a couple problems every year. And if you get a DUI, every carrier handles that differently. So how bad was it? Was it a felony? Was it a misdemeanor? Was it a first time repeat offense? What's going on? The devil's in the details. If you're going to lose your ability to represent a company because of that, and then everybody does it differently, how long you'll lose your contract, if you can appeal, blah, 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 blah. I always say, if you understand how one company handles things, you've understood how one company handles things. For sure. That has no bearing on everybody else.
Right. So last year, United Healthcare came out with a by invitation only in a select 4 states. They picked agents
to sell a new Medicare supplement. So with your contract, you can still sell the AARP Medicare supplement. There's no new paperwork to sell the UHICA Medicare supplement.
It's just by invitation.
It's just by invitation.
You're a lucky one. However, the new plan would show up on the quote, and if you weren't appointed by special invitation,
there's an asterisk,
and you sold it, you did not get paid. So that's no good.
Right.
But they're rolling out some more agents in states this year. Is that what we're hearing?
Right. So they're rolling out a bunch of new states. So be looking in your email box for an invitation for UHICA. Very competitive rates. And that is coming right now, this week, I assume.
So we're going to talk about FEMA SCPs right now and how those work.
So if you have a national disaster declared in your state, so
Wildfires,
hurricanes,
winter storms,
tornadoes, flooding, there's a million.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is crazy, all these FEMA SCPs. Your client can use these FEMA SCPs to move their plan, change their plan, their Medicare Advantage or their Part D, if they did not already use an applicable election that they had.
So let's say, for example, because I love examples, you're my client and we go from one carrier to another one. Can I use a FEMA SCP?
So if I'm going to say you during AEP you wanted to and you couldn't because you were displaced because there was a wildfire in California, then I can use the FEMA SCP. So I'd have to prove that you live where there was the wildfire. If you don't have proof, because a lot of people, their stuff burns up, you can verbally attest to it. Or it might not even be that you were in California. It might be the person that helps you. Like your sister's the one that handles all your stuff and she was displaced. So there's a lot of leeway there to use this COVID SCP. The key thing is that I didn't use my AEP election. I didn't move anything during AEP or OEP or IEP. If I already use it and I'm trying to just use this FEMA thing,
you can't. You get one shot to move basically a year.
Yeah, if you've already used your applicable elections, you can't use your FEMA.
You can't use it again. Well, what's interesting that just came out is we received from Humana the COVID-19 nationwide public health emergency as declared by the Secretary of HHS, saying that the SCP for COVID end date is to be determined. And this has really had our phones ringing because, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought almost all carriers had already put an end date to a COVID SCP.
I know. So we don't really know what's going on. Most of the carriers said there is no COVID SCP right now. Humana said that there is. So it's just letting you know that we're as confused as you are.
Yeah. So we will
just putting that out there.
As we find out, we will keep you posted. That is all that I have right now.
Okay. See you next week. Happy selling.
Good selling.